Okay, so from writer and director, now you have been, you said you from a tech background. So from, talking about tech to a conversational tone, how did that transition happen?
Uh, so technically, I am from tech communications. I understand technology, even though I come from a very simple BCom honors, MBA kind of a background. I got into technology to understand it. I was passionate about technology for a very long time, and we were trying to talk to the world about technology. And from there, when I moved to movies, I think one of the first thing that I kind of realized was we need to first converse in movies. The base of any movie is dialogue. Yeah. It is probably one of the people usually look at dialogue-based movie and say, this is the most easiest thing to do, but actually it's one of the more tougher things to do because you need to keep a person engaged in a dialogue. So in a way, I've been doing that all throughout my life. I've been trying to engage people to try and listen to me for a very, very long time. So I thought this is what I have to translate it onto the screen too. Yeah. Basically, keeping people hooked onto a conversation in today's world is very difficult because you have so much of distractions. You have so much of the attention spans are so low. So it was probably more tougher for us to create a conversational film because you've got to make them sit down and just listen to two people speak. There's no action happening. There's no visual drama that usually happens in films. So it's just two people who are just sitting and having a conversation about the philosophies of their life. And that probably comes definitely from me understanding about trying to make conversations over a period of time. Over the last 10 odd years, the work experience that I've had has been about making conversations. So it just translated onto the screen.
So do you think you can, like you said, the attention span is limited. I mean, people can't read, I mean, they don't even read newspapers, like they just check caught headlines and, move on. So how do you think you will manage to keep the audience under your grip in the Unheard?
I think with Unheard, we've had our test screenings.
Okay.
So again, marketing, communications, I used to teach marketing research for a while. And we kind of realized that people are hooked onto conversation if you're able to get them to be. Isn't that, as a director, that is my responsibility to ensure that they have to be, that's my job. So I can't really say that it is tough out there, so I will not do my job. So the element is, once we started doing our test screens, we were sure that we had a good product in hand. We were sure that we had achieved what we set out to do. And people sat through it. People sat through, for our last premiere, we had 120 minutes. And everyone just sat through it silently. There was just pin drop silence in the entire hall for 120 minutes of this conversational series. So I think we would be able to achieve at least some part of what we set out to do.
So there have been a lot of period flicks that have come out. I mean, of course, Freedom Struggle, there are like so many movies. I mean, it's a done to death topic. So what is it about this? I mean, you were calling it a conversational drama. So what is, other than it being conversational, what is it you think this will set apart from other things?
So a couple of things. One is, I'll disagree with you on the thing that it has been done to that. I think we are just touching the tip of the
iceberg. Of course, here you're having a Hyderabad connect.
No, not just about the Hyderabad connect, but I think India has so much more stories. The freedom struggle is something that we have just kind of touched on the tip, and somehow we are stuck with a few leaders.
Yeah, right. That's true.
So there is a lot of depth in terms of trying to understand the freedom struggle of India. It's an ocean of thought, and it's probably the largest human movement that has happened on the face of this planet to break through bondages. So that is the first part of it. The second is why Unheard is different is because we are no longer looking at the leaders. In Unheard, the idea of Unheard is, it's not just a Hyderabad connect which is unheard, but it is also the people who are unheard. We always hear the leaders. The leaders are speaking. We have this whole stories of the journeys of leaders from the scratch. These people have grown, they have the kind of hardships that they have gone through. But a leader is only a leader because of his followers. If leader does not have followers, what would he lead? So the idea is, what is the perspective of these followers to follow a leader and to follow him to death, to follow him to freedom, which they had not experienced. No one had an idea of freedom. No one really understood freedom completely. Today we take freedom for granted. But back then it is a little more vague. It is almost intangential. You cannot know, you cannot define freedom. I mean, And India was constantly always under a king or the other. We didn't have a democracy per se. I mean, probably Takshashila way back or Nalanda way back, but we didn't really have a very long period of democracy. And here are a bunch of people who are fighting for the sake of this intangential idea, ready to die, not just for them, but probably the future generations, which they may not be their own progeny, to be someone else. I mean, like, that is the beauty of the common man. The common man of India sacrificed everything for the sake of a intangible idea, something that is so unique to him. And he fought for these ideals and died. So, Unheard is that attempt to understand his mind. Unheard is trying to define freedom from their perspective. Unheard is trying to understand their philosophies in terms of how they are approaching freedom. So that is what I would look at as setting Unheard apart from rest of the things. We are not doing a heroic journey.
Yeah.
We are not going and following someone's pattern. We are following the common people and their lives. What we created was this very small microcosm where we looked at 6 lives which are constantly interweaving within each other. And as they're interweaving within each other, what are their thoughts? And history plays like a tape in the background.
Okay.
It's not the thing for us. It is their thoughts which are more important. I think more than anything, more than an event, it's an individual's feelings towards that event that are actually important.
Yeah.
The events keep happening, but individuals, as they start feeling it, and these individuals, when they matter to us, it's important for us.
So no part of this, is it fictitious or you have added some of
It is mostly fictitious. I'm very clear about that, but I have to be honest. This is not really. It's not history. This is not something that has been. This is fictitious. These conversations are fictitious. These characters are fictitious, but they could be people who would have existed like this. We tried to take inspiration from common people of that time. There have been people who have gone to World War I. Indians have gone to World War I. They have fought in World War I. So we have World War I veteran. So there have been young girls who have gotten into the Gandhian movement who actually were one of the drivers of the space and who truly believed in it. We have a young Gandhian girl. We have the representatives of Nizam who always existed, of course. Then you have people who have taken up guns who have suffered from the Spanish flu.
Yeah, so what was this inclusion of Spanish flu deliberate in considering the pandemic situation, or it just came?
No, it is, again, another unheard part of history. Spanish flu is a very, very important part of our history. It's just something that we don't learn about at school. It's something that we don't talk about in real life. Yeah. The Spanish flu played an important role in the freedom struggle of India. Because as over 3 crore, 10% of India probably succumbed to Spanish flu and died. People start realizing what horrible rulers the British were and how much of apathy they have towards the common man. And the common man was being helped and being inspired by the freedom fighters at that point of time. And it kind of translated this small burgeoning movement into this huge mass human sea of a movement. Because there was a change. I mean, historically, if you look at it, pandemics have always been the cause for some sort of a social change. Yeah. Like the Black Death came to Europe and immediately you had Renaissance. Spanish flu came to India, you had the freedom movement going to a huge level. So it was deliberate because it was important for the story, and it was deliberate because it was also important for the history of India, that freedom movement of India, technically. So it was a very deliberate attempt to put Spanish flu there, not just because there is pandemic right now that is happening, but it's also the fact that it is something very relevant to the story.
Yeah. So when you're picking historic subjects, when somebody sets to explore this genre, more often than not, there'll be some controversies involved, and people are not, I mean, they don't agree to your perspectives, like you're talking about perspectives. Why did you think you actually chose this?
So, I just didn't want to put my perspective alone. I wanted to put all the perspectives out there. So, that way I am trying to balance out whatever controversy that might be there. But the idea is, this is me at different points of time in my life. As a youngster, as a 20-year-old, you have to believe in Bhagat Singh. Yeah. As probably someone a little older, you have to understand Gandhi. It's almost like it is your growth stage. As you start growing, you start understanding things which are more different. and I've had these different perspectives in different phases of my life. So, and I've tried to represent them, and pretty much I was trying to think about it like, yeah, this is a demographic representation, and perspectives when told from one forced narrative, that is, it's just my perspective and you have to believe it, there's something wrong with that. I believe that as a filmmaker, I have to present as many perspectives as possible and let people pick and choose what they want to subscribe to. I'm not someone who's going to say this is what I said and this is right.
Yeah.
This is multiplicity of things in front of you, and your choice what you want to pick.
But why did you want to make it into a series when you have such a beautiful subject and not a big screen thing?
We do have a film cut that we have had censored and everything else. But one thing that we also realized is these are great in tiny bits. You can consume it better, and you give that break of the titles. It just gives you a little time for you to reflect and then come back to the next one. We know we kind of realize that people are going to binge, but it just is that break that is required, because this is something that's going to make the audience think. It's something that's going to make the audience start understanding themselves. So I think we need that little pause. Also, another thing that we had taken into account.
So is there a continuity between
Yeah. So basically, episode 1 starts in around 1907, and episode 2 goes up to 1920, and episode 3 is 1925. So like that, we have the progression of events that are happening. So that kind of a movement is there.
So you said you have a cut version for movie, the censored version. Do you think there's no more freedom making things for making movies or series for OTT platforms than the big screen?
See, the freedom comes in from the creative aspects, because in an OTT you do not have a limitation of a 2.5 hour cut.
Yeah.
You can explore these characters extensively. Because I've also worked on Radhika's previous project GOD. One of the things that I kind of worked during that period of time was working deeply into character development. So we are doing world building, and world building takes time. You need to get people to digest things bit by bit, and that cannot really happen on the big screen. OTTs have definitely given a greater platform for people to come out and do it, but then a theatre experience is a theatre experience. You cannot beat that. I mean, I would still like to watch even the likes of Game of Thrones on the big screen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would also want to watch Game of Thrones for 8 hours straight. Yeah, because that's how I would perceive it. So that dichotomy is there.
Yeah, because now people have projectors at home, they have recliners at home, they have a theatre room. And you're watching with the entire family.
Yeah, so there's a different kind of experience, but a theatre experience, you're going as a community to a theatre, and you have those Dolby Digital sound systems which are like pounding that sound into your head, and that kind of is inspiring. I got into becoming a filmmaker like that. But then OTT definitely has that, it's also very tempting because of the fact that, you have that time to write. You can write so much, you can tell so much. Your stories are large, so that has its own place.
What kind of budgeting went into this? Because I think you had costume designers.
So basically, I had one simple thing, because I was already so wrapped up in all the decisions that I had to take. I basically looked at my producer and said, I'm just going to ask, you're going to provide. And she did that. So I never bothered with the budgets. I never even looked at the budgets at a point of time. Though I had a very vague idea in terms of, this is how much I have to do it in. And she was someone who was hands-on in terms of helping me that, that certain decisions, especially finances. She was someone who was very on hand. She's not one of those producers who's like, haan, theek hai, you do everything. She's someone who is very collaborative in that part. So I got what I wanted, is what I would say.
So even the choice of characters, they went by your choice of characters?
Absolutely. I mean, we discussed it, and with Radhika, I think one of the best things that happens is I put forth characters that I want, and we have a discussion about it, and we look at who's feasible, and add to that who's more suitable for that role, and that's how we got to a final stick. But yeah, I've had absolute freedom in terms of everything that I wanted to pick.
So the choice of characters, you have chosen very unusual people for the casting.
It was basically a very deliberate thing, because we wanted to have actors. We wanted to have the actors. people who can contribute in terms of understanding the characters, because they are layered characters. Each of these characters have been multiple layers inside it, and they definitely have a lot of dialogue. So we needed people to come in and do a lot of workshops, and I got all the cast that I wanted. Basically, I've been very lucky that in my first debut film I've had such a great cast, which basically gave me time and believed in this madness of a vision. Because on paper, if you were to say that this is a conversational film, imagining it itself is a little difficult. And third, everyone had just agreed. No one had second thought. It was like the narration got done and they were like, yeah, we are in. I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. I actually had to ask people, I'm like, are you sure? Did you just say yes? But it was like an immediate yes for me. So I was super stoked with that kind of a response. And most importantly, I think the contribution that they put in has evolved the subject, in terms of the fact that they were able to bring their own finesse and their own thinking into the characters, which I really wanted. Because when thinking comes from one person, it is still just one person's thought. But I think with my actors, I had the opportunity of looking at them contributing with their own thoughts, talking about how they perceived that particular narrative, how they understood it, what they felt about it at that moment. And they also contributed to language, to understanding, and the amount of time and effort that they put in was extensive. So that was probably the reason why I'm like very lucky to have found it for my first debut film. I don't think I would find a lot of debut directors have their own issues, but I've been blessed that way.
So how long did it take for you to make this? I mean, including the research time and everything.
The research is an ongoing process for me. It's like I think I worked on my first project on Indian independence struggle way back when I was 18, 19. So from then, writing a project for Osmania University in terms of Gandhian management perspective. From there, moving on to understanding it in a deeper level. And history has been one of my favorite subjects, and I've been constantly in history. My first book, I'm an author, so my first book is called Daitya Diaries, and it's a mixture of Hindu mythology and world history. So for me, Indian independence struggle has been a constant understanding, close to almost now, I think I was 19, I'm 34 now, so maybe about 15 odd years. So it's been a churn in process, and these are perspectives that I've had at different stages of my life. So writing it was very easy. I think I wrote the entire thing in 12 days. It was very easy for me to write. But the effort that has gone in for it has been for years. So I don't think I can quantify it saying that this is the start point and this is the end point. I just put it down on paper one day and it got done with this point. It's been years of effort is what I would say.
So you were talking about your perspectives changing at different point in time. So do you think it happens with people, like at one point they believe in some ideology and then it changes over time, maybe because of the experience or because of external influence?
Absolutely. I mean, we are human beings. If we are not influenced by society, then we are not societal beings. I mean, there are very few rocks in the society who are like, I believe in this, I only believe in this. I think there's something in Telugu which says that there are people who say something like this. Like, I catch a rabbit and that guy believes that there are only 3 legs for the rabbit because he's holding the 4th leg. So you keep changing perspectives as you travel. You evolve as a human being as you have conversations. You understand the world better when you read. Every single human thought, we are a result of the society itself. So as the society influences us, we are going to change too. So that element is something that is ingrained inside our heads. So we will definitely not, we are definitely evolutionary beings, good or bad. I mean, you could definitely have thoughts which could elevate you, and there are definitely thoughts which could bring you down as a human being. So, but change is constant. That's there. As a thinking being, change is constant.
So you said like actors, they came up with their own versions, and yes, they add that finesse to the thing. So are there aspects in the movie where you actually had to fine tune the script or added some element?
So there have been some amazing improvisations done. Like Darshi out of the blue, while he's talking about Bhagat Singh, and he suddenly says that Inqilab Zindabad, Samrajyawadi Murdabad, and I was like, what did he just say? And it was like bang on. At that moment, I knew this man is living the character. He's no longer just an actor. This man is living that character, and it's coming from his heart. And this was the first day for me when I was shooting. And I was like, all right, noted, these guys have started living these characters, so I have to be now more careful when it comes to listening to them, because now the characters are speaking. So there have definitely been places where we said that, all right, everything has been summarized in one single line, so we don't have to do the entire another page of dialogue again. Quite a few times, because these actors have started living it. At no point of time they were out of it, because you do not get to such finesse, adding, or you cannot do not get to such improvisations if you are not living that character. So they were bang on with that part.
See, there's this concept of pan-India that has come into existence. Everybody's talking about pan-India movies. Now, you have chosen Telugu as the medium. Why did you think a web series in Telugu would get that kind of attention?
I think language is no longer a barrier anymore.
Correct. So when it's no longer a barrier, why do you actually need to make movies in different languages? Like they dub movies into different
languages, right? The idea of language is it's a traditional part of culture. It's a part of our, language is an integral part of it. So when I'm doing a Telugu cinema, I'm keeping Telugu alive. At the same time, I'm contributing to the body of work in Telugu. Yeah. I am ensuring that my language is also represented to the world. If I'm telling a Telugu story, I would like to tell it in Telugu.
True.
Yeah. If I'm telling, I mean, it is a story of Hyderabad, so that's why I chose Urdu and Telugu. I didn't just choose Telugu, because Hyderabad is also Urdu. Yes. So at the same time, if I'm going to go to, let's say, Assam, and I'm going to do a movie around Ahom Kingdom, I'm going to do it in Assamese. I'm definitely not going to do it in Telugu. Right. So I think as human beings, we need to respect the place, the language, the history and the culture. And me being a history buff, I would first and foremost say that, I should not be tinkering with that beautiful tapestry of culture that the place is.
Correct. So now people are making movies, I mean pan-India movies, right? Like the core script is in your language. Like I think in my mother tongue or you think in your mother tongue. So the sensibilities of your local thing, it shows in your script. Right, but do you think, I mean, and if a movie is really great, like you said, language is not a barrier, and now with OTT platforms, people will watch, I mean, I watch Malayalam movies, Korean movies, everything. So when that is the case, do you think making a pan-India movie makes sense? I mean, because there are certain aspects probably I would not relate to, being a non-local.
Absolutely. So basically, the idea would be to pick a subject which is Indian in nature. That's why freedom. You cannot debate the idea of freedom anywhere in India. Yeah. Like, it is an emotion for us across the country. Being an Indian I'm just saying, all right, this freedom in context of Hyderabad. You cannot really say no to that, right? Yeah. I think we will evolve. The stories are getting more mature and people are reading up more, because of which pan-Indian subjects are becoming larger in scope. So earlier it would have been difficult to probably make someone understand, like, there is a drug dealer out there in South America and I'm going to do a show around it. People would say, oh, who's going to watch it? But now we have a phenomena called Narcos, which is about a drug dealer all the way in South America. Yeah. Colombia, I mean, which most of us haven't even seen on the map. If you were to say, all right, where is Colombia on the map, it will be difficult for a lot of people to point it out. But we are watching that movie of that man. But that's because of the amount of exposure that we have got. But as filmmakers, you'll always look for these underlying emotions that can be connected to humankind. I mean, human beings are very much alike across the world. We are ambitious, we are greedy, we are kind, we are at the same time, we do feel sadness. We have all these emotions which are pretty much the same thing. So if I'm able to talk in the language of that emotion, I think every story is not just pan-India, it's a pan-world story. Yeah. So it's a global, I think we have gotten into the era of global filmmaking, and we as filmmakers, even in Telugu or in South or in India, we are not competing with local filmmakers anymore. We are competing with everything that is in the international, I mean, we are competing with the entire world right now. And I think we should keep that attitude only.
So what next after this?
We are in talks. Mostly, there might be another periodic. I mean, I would. It's all automatic.
So is there a sequel in the
Sequel? Yes, we have quite a few ideas around Unheard, because after you see this, you will realize that there's so much more we can do with it. And it was conceived like that. It was conceived as a platform for multiple stories to come, multiple conversations and stories to come out, which are unheard and which have different perspectives. So definitely, we definitely have an idea around a sequel. We have an idea around other languages for Unheard, not just Telugu, and other areas for Unheard. So these are elements that we are still tinkering with.
So would you be open for a collaboration if someone were to come to you and say, I have some unheard stories and I want to talk about it?
Absolutely. I mean, like, I think we have definitely got a lot of width, and there is no real end to stories. So it's just something like everything has to be right. The catalysts have to come together, but we can definitely do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.